All right, ladies and gentlemen, we should be back. Yep, we are recording. Okay, so I wanted to do a supplemental to my, since I've had some time to think about it, to my meta video that I recently did. And specifically, I want to talk about, I brought up as an example for how the way you design your system will dictate, will manifest certain player behaviors due to the nature of human beings. And one of the examples I brought up was the itemization system, where specifically, I'll probably go to this next one over here, where when you're trying to do like 5-man dungeons or mythics or whatever, heroics and so forth, we have item score now. We also have phasing, and then we have a system that is both very easy to get people in and very easy to replace people. And we're all, I imagine, from retail pretty damn familiar with how cancerous and toxic that environment is, where everything is based around just your gear score, and the slightest difficulty in the dungeon either sees a bunch of people leaving, like a single wipe, or even a little bit of difficulty, or even a little bit of people yelling at each other, sees people just abandoning the dungeon immediately. And yes, it's very easy to replace them, but at the same time, it's kind of annoying. You can also see people getting kicked for the slightest mistakes, even the slightest perceived mistakes. This also goes back with our discussion about the meta. People want it easy, and therefore they'll end up being like meta slaves. And if they perceive that you're sucking a dick with your gear, your tactics, or anything, if you're really easy to replace, then they're just going to replace you. The point I'm trying to make here is I think a lot of these systems come together in a kind of a perfect storm, especially when we compare it to Asmongold's Scarlet Monastery example, where, you know, you show up at Scarlet Monastery, you finally get everybody together. It's taken you like half an hour or an hour to get a group together to go to Scarlet Monastery. You finally get to Scarlet Monastery and you discover that your tank is a piece of shit. Like, not gear-wise, like because it doesn't really matter in Classic, because that goes back again to the fact that, it's easier. But he's not sucking gear-wise, but he's sucking skill-wise. And rather than just replacing his bitch ass, because it'll take way too long, you're punished for kicking him. Instead, you, not only do you train up this poor new bastard who doesn't know his skills very well, not only do you bother to train him up, but you're actually quite cordial with him. You treat him quite well in your wording. You're not super disparaging to him or anything like that, because you're kind of concerned also that if you're too hard on the guy for his shitty tanking or his shitty job or his shitty DPS or whatever the hell they're doing wrong, that they might just leave. And in both cases, it's not easy to replace people. Therefore, you're punished for kicking people, and you're punished for treating people badly enough socially that they just leave, right? But in current retail, you're not punished at all for just kicking them and replacing them. Item score is its own separate cancerous piece of ass, but that's a whole little thing. I think the bigger problem with dungeon meta in retail, in my personal opinion, it's really a storm of all of these together. But the whole point I wanted to make this video is I didn't provide a potential solution in the previous video. Am I actually talking? Let me check over here. My mic, oh wow, my mic, the light on my mic is so dim, couldn't even tell. Okay, so, yeah, I didn't present any solutions in the previous video, yet I brought it up as a problem. So I've been thinking about, like, okay, if this was my game and I was in charge of retail and I was in charge of game design, if this was my game and I had these systems in place, can't change these systems, but I'm observing player behavior coming out of these systems that is basically toxic, or is just bad in general, I would ask myself, what changes would I make to the system in order to get back to more people being more socially friendly, connecting with each other, that kind of stuff. So first off, what I would do is Um, well, first off, I would identify what are the causes of the behavior that is undesirable. Then I would look for examples in other games or in past iterations of my game where did we or did we not have this problem? How do other people handle this problem? What are the core aspects of them dealing with the problem? This is all just the way you deal with things philosophically or just rationally, I think, generally. And since it was nice and clean back in World of Warcraft, like things worked quite well in World of Warcraft, classic, that is, and now it's complete shit because we've made some changes, well, then we'll look at the changes. So the first place I would look for is, can I remove any of these? And if the answer is no, because we're at this point, we've been bitching about this for so fucking long with retail that we just have to assume that this is going to be the law of the land. Ease of replacement and ease of finding groups is going to be law of the land. Phasing is going to be law of the land. Item score, the ability to rapidly look up a person's performance capabilities, is going to be law of the land. Even if Blizzard, I think, wanted to get rid of item score out of their game, there would be like, second-party add-ons and all that kind of shit that would track things as they already do. So you're gonna be stuck with this either way. And since we're also stuck with the nature of human beings in games, we're just going to have to roll with it. Okay, so the first thing that I would have to do, in my personal opinion, is I'm observing that there's no punishment. There's no punishment for bad social behavior in current retail. As far as maybe at the high end of rating it is, but as far as like pugging dungeons or even LFR and all that kind of stuff, there's no real punishment for toxic behavior that I can see, especially if you're the one making the groups. So currently we have no punishment. No punishment for kicking people. No punishment for yelling at people in dungeons. Because, again, this all goes back to the ease of the replacement, right? If you end up being so damn easy to replace, then, yeah, we got a freaking problem here. Can I do this? Wow. Let's not draw ever here at Pally Time. Let's never do that. Okay, so... ease of replacement also equals no punishment for replacement, which also equals is there a reward for rapidly kicking shitty players and replacing them possibly with better players? And the answer is yes, right? And it goes back to that whole human nature thing where it's like, not only do they want fun and satisfaction, but they also want it easy. They always want things easy, even though that might not be good for you at all. So if I'm making it super easy to replace people, super not punishing to replace people, and the reward is that, well, the reward is I don't have to teach anybody. I can just get probably a better person here. No problem whatsoever. It's all a problem. So the first thing I would look to do is to put punishment back in the game. You are punished in the game for not making it work with what you show up at the dungeon with, which is exactly how it is in classic World of Warcraft. So the first thing I would do is maybe we can get a list here. Yeah, I'll just start over here. Whoa, that's not working. All right, so let me do a list of things I would do. Number one, let's make it bigger. 24? Yeah. Okay, number one, I would put punishment back in the game. And in this case, it would be AKA. What I'm specifically thinking about here is once you get a team together of 5 people to go do a dungeon, okay? Let's say you get your team of 5 people. You're going to go do a dungeon, a heroic, a mythic. And you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do it like if somebody so if you're going to kick somebody, so it would be like kicking anyone. Kicking equals 30 minutes until you can replace. This is actually, So the first thing I would do is I'd make it so that the sheer act of saying, fuck you, get out of my group, kicking them takes about 30 minutes to replace. Now, personally, I think 30 minutes is probably too long for retail. Retail might not be able to handle 30 damn minutes of time before you can replace a guy. So maybe you can do like 15 or maybe 20 minutes until you can actually replace a guy when you're kicking them. So make it a punishing act to fail to work with what you have and to just get rid of somebody. Like put a... I'm 100% okay from a design perspective for an MMO RPG that it is both easy to get groups and it is easy to get to the dungeon. I'm perfectly fine with that. What I'm not okay is once you've started the dungeon, how easy is it for you to be an asshole, make people leave, and or just straight up kick people and subsequently replace them. The easier that is, the worse social experience you're going to have because, again, you're incentivizing the worst. You're incentivizing negative social behaviors from the human animal as opposed to positive social behaviors from the human animal. That's probably the best way to put it. So, ease of replacement with no punishment and you're rewarded for replacing people at the drop of a hat? Yeah, fuck that noise. Okay, so first thing, kicking someone equals 20 minutes until you can replace them. Now, optional. An optional one would be, this is optional in my opinion, not because it's bad, but because I think there are better ways to, which we're going to talk about momentarily, there are better system design options for achieving the desired effect than doing what I'm about to propose. Optional would be if player leaves. So if a player leaves suddenly, then yeah, it's a 10 minutes until replace. And you can even make this commutative. Okay, possibly commutative? I can't spell that word. Anyways, possibly commutative. So basically, if one person, let's say I'm in a dungeon group with a 5-man and one guy's being like a jackass. He's being like an asshole. You've all met like these super elitist people who somebody's not doing things right and they're just being a complete dick to them. Sometimes they're in charge of the group and sometimes the group can be like, well, okay, I'm gonna kick this asshole. And, yeah, we're going to have a 20-minute wait, but at least we might be able to do... We'll probably do some foremanning until while we wait for the timer to kick down, and then we'll replace him. I'm not dealing with this asshole. Because if you leave the asshole in the group, what is probably going to end up happening is one or more players are going to start to leave, and because they're having a bad social experience, and you're going to end up with a 10-minute timer likely anyways, and if it's commutative, that means the first person that leaves is 10 minutes, the second person that leaves is now 20 minutes, and third and fourth and fifth. And this is kind of an interesting optional because it means that not only, what I'm trying to do here, what I'm basically trying to say is, if we just leave it so that kicking a person has a punishment of 20 minutes, this does nothing for the purposes of, it incentivizes the social behavior where you start being a complete verbal asshole to somebody when they're doing bad things in the hopes that they leave on their own. That way you don't suffer the 20-minute kick period. So subsequently, we have to put in a punishment where that if people are just leaving on their own, it also punishes them. It also possibly punishes. If people have to leave just like straight up, like, you know, oh shit, I gotta go, emergency, really sorry guys, you know, blah, 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 blah. If that's the scenario, you possibly could design into your game an option where if a player is choosing to leave the party, a pop-up could happen where they're like, hey, do you want to punish this group with a 10-minute cooldown or not, or are you just leaving of your own free will because life is happening, basically. And if they click the no, I don't want to punish them option, then, or if they do click the I want to punish them option, then they have to suffer 10 minutes for being a dick. If otherwise, they can just easily replace the guy. This is optional, however, because as we're going to see, there are better systems for dealing with this. But long story short is if we're trying to get back to Asmongold's starting Scarlet Monastery example, when things were really kind of a nice social experience, because like it's like, yeah, they might be really pissed off at you, yeah, they might be angry, but they can't, first off, you can't easily replace them, so you might as well try to work it out. Secondly, you can't if you're too much of a dick socially to the guy, if you put out too much of your stress on them and then they just leave, then you're in the same boat. So not only do you have to be nice, but you have to try to make it work. Otherwise, you're going to get punished for not doing it. If you put these two things back in the game, or had these two things in addition to the item score, the phasing, and the ease of replacement, it would actually work. Like these solutions are all assuming that we can't get rid of this shit, because apparently it's bad. So this is option number one. Option number two, and we're going to be talking more about the optionals. It assumes that we're also doing option number one. So option number two, we're assuming we're doing the first part of number one, but rather than doing the second part, we have a completely different system which achieves the optional of option one, and that is. And this one's specifically designed to tackle the problem of item score and phasing that I particularly see. So in classic World of Warcraft, especially on the smaller servers that we used to have, your reputation is a really big deal. And phasing is cancerous to an MMO for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons that it's cancerous to MMOs is it disincentivizes positive human interaction, and it incentivizes negative human interaction. Whereas when you're stuck on a server in classic World of Warcraft, back in the day you couldn't server transfer for fuck all if memory serves. So if you were a dick to too many people on your relatively small community and word got around, you were fucked. You basically had to start another character and re-roll from scratch, because people wouldn't raid with you, they wouldn't do dungeons with you. You were getting screwed. And again, that whole punishment for being an asshole in an MMO is actually very healthy for an MMO experience. So. And I personally think that phasing basically is cancerous ass to this aspect of the social experience and dictating player behavior in your MMO. So what I was thinking might be quite fascinating, especially to go along with the number one option up here, is, so imagine this. Imagine that not only when I'm making a raid, do I see people's item scores? Like, in my ideal game design, I would want to see a number of things pop up when I'm trying to create a dungeon team, especially if number one is in effect. Okay. Option number one. First thing I'd want to see is I'd want to see the guy's item score, but I'd also want to see like their average item score for when they're doing dungeons, like especially at like the high end levels and that kind of stuff. So it's like I don't want them to be throwing on just random crap just because it has a high item level, and then that's what I'm seeing. I kind of want to see what their average gear level is in the dungeons, for example, as opposed to that. But that's just a pet peeve. You don't really have to deal with that. More importantly, however, if number one is in effect, what I would start liking to see is essentially like a social score. Meaning that, picture this, for example. So, every time somebody leaves, right? Every time somebody can't handle the dungeon, we're assuming that this is not in effect, so bear with me. We're assuming that the optional, if players leave, there's a 10 minutes until you can replace. We're assuming that that's not here. But every time a player leaves a dungeon for any reason, or when you complete a dungeon, like at the very end, right? You kill the last boss. A thing pops up that basically lets you score your fellow players, right? So then a thing pops up, and then there's basically you can put in 4 scores for the other players. And you can like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your experience playing with this guy? Right? And you go through it. You're like, okay, well, the tank I would rate like this, and the mage I would rate like this. And personally, I would have like 2 forms of rating. Like how you rate their social capabilities, and then you rate their performance, like their class performance capabilities. So, and then when I'm making a 5-man group, I can actually see that information as part of the item score bullshit, right? So when I'm making a group, what I would see is I would see their item score. I would also see their social score, and I would also see their performance score as rated by the communities. Both those as rated by the communities. So a person might be like, a 4.5 out of 5 rating for their social. How nice do they interact with other people? Like, how well do they interact with other people? Do they leave you hanging? All that kind of stuff, right? Not actually statistics. You just ask people like, how would you rate this guy's social performance, or social experience? And I wouldn't say performance. And then how would you rate their skill-based performance or their class-based performance? And the reason why I like those 2 metrics is because I want, as a party leader trying to form a group to do anything in Classic World of Warcraft, especially if number 1 is in place, and we're going to be punished if people are dickheads or their skills are lacking. If I'm doing like low-end content, like just normal heroics and so forth and so on, trying to get gear or whatever, what I'd probably be interested in is I'd want players, like I may or may not, depending on I would want players that I know aren't going to leave, right? And they probably have a really good social score, right? Like I'm talking like 4 at a minimum social score. And on top, but however, if I'm doing like high-end mythics or some crap like that, then I might be far more interested in like the guys who, the elitist jerk kind of guys, where it's like, yeah, their social score is not the best, but their item score is fucking retardedly high, and their skill is pretty good, right? Like I imagine, yeah, whatever, you get the point. So the whole purpose of this, let me type it in real fast here. Let's see, I'm going to call it a social rating system. So just like an item score, item score, we'll say social score. There we go. So the whole point of having like a social score system, and then on top of that, possibly tab doesn't work. Fantastic. Possibly, spacebar doesn't work either. Fantastic. Slash, what the? It just doesn't want to work anymore? I'm typing my keyboard. It's not doing anything. Fine, whatever. Fuck off. Slash skill, class skill score. Apparently we're going to use item score, so I might as well use the word score and everything. For score and 50 million years ago. Okay, so rather than this optional here, actually let me delete this. So rather than our optional, the other suggestion is that people have a social score and they have a class skill-based score that you can see going into a dungeon. So you're like, okay, the people who probably have a good social score probably aren't going to make people leave anytime soon. We're probably not going to have to kick them, like, all that kind of stuff. But the whole point I'm trying to make here is, if I have to keep these systems in place, which generate negative human social behaviors, right? What the fuck? Why would I not want other systems in place to try to counteract these negative social behavior manifestations? And this is precisely where what I'm talking about when I say that player behavior is a design problem on the game designer's end, right? Your systems will dictate in large part the way the experiences that the human beings will not only manifest in the game, but they will manifest amongst themselves. So, again, so all I'm trying to do here is mimic classic World of Warcraft. So in classic World of Warcraft, you actually do have a social score, and you do have a class score, except your class score doesn't really matter. People can look up parses and stuff like that, though, but in truth, it really doesn't matter. But you secretly in classic World of Warcraft do have a social score, and you secretly do have a skill score that people can look up, even though the game is a completely different animal. And you're actually very, very punished for not only being dickheads to people, but you're also punished for kicking people because they're so very hard to replace. And this tends to generate a rather pleasurable social experience in the game, even if and when the content gets a little difficult. I'm sure you've noticed this if you play classic World of Warcraft. Like you'll wipe in a 5-man dungeon. It's very rare anybody leaves. Right, it's very rare, and even then, almost nobody ever bitches about anything, right? So you'll have like 4 or 5 runbacks before anyone's like, "Holy shit, why don't we try this?" or blah 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 blah. And it's that manifestation of player behavior is not natural. Okay, that is not the natural human response to failure in a video game. The natural human response is that they desire to have fun and or satisfaction, and they desire to achieve this in the easiest way possible. So natural human action is going to be, you're fucking up, I want to replace you, if I can, I'm going to do it. Well, first off, it's like, if you're fucking up, I want to yell at you and or I want to replace you. And if I have the ease of doing either of those things, I'm going to do this because, they desire things to be easy. Classic World of Warcraft basically shits on this idea, and so you're stuck in a world where the meta, the easiest way to achieve your goals, to have fun and to achieve satisfaction, the easiest thing to do is to teach that motherfucker how to tank and to be nice to him. Right? That's because it's harder to replace him than it is to be nice and to teach. Right? Think about that shit. So we're still 100% in line with natural human behavior in a video game, right? Ease. We're still in line with the meta. And in truth, in Classic WoW, the meta kind of becomes, don't talk shit to the person who's fucking up. Try to be nice to him. Try to teach him. Hopefully he's willing to learn a thing or two. If not, they leave, and then you're like, okay, well, we tried. We tried to do this the easiest way possible, but if they don't want to help out, fine. But then they get like a bad social score and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, this is how it works in Classic World of Warcraft. Even though there's not a social score, there technically is a social score. Are you with me on this? Okay, fine. So what I'm proposing is that in retail WoW, we literally bring back punishment for kicking people, punishment for not being for people leaving, and we're subsequently also bringing back the idea and concept of a social score, possibly even a class score, and that's primarily to counter phasing. So it's like the more people are an asshole to you, like, you can just, I don't know how you'd really want to do that. Like, is it just a dungeon social score that you'd want? Or would you also want like possibly a world social score where anybody could like right click you and then just be like, this guy was an asshole to me. He stole my mom. I'm going to lower his social score. Bleh. Probably not. You probably want to actually have griefing in the game. Other interesting things with social scores. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about this. So the other interesting thing about having a social score system would be there would be a player behavior that would manifest if someone was too much of an asshole. So let's say that you were too much of an asshole to too many people, and you suddenly have a super low social score rating. So let's say that you fucked a bunch of people out on their gear. I'm using a classic WoW example here. You screwed over a bunch of people on their gear, because I think Master Looter and all there being no Master Looter, you can't really do that anymore, which is kind of sad and pathetic. All right, but let's say that for some reason you're like a toxic asshole to too many people, and you got a low social score, so you're having a real hard time finding new dungeons or people to party up with you because your social score is like a 2 out of 5. Also, I would do brackets for the social score that basically eliminate. Well, I don't know how to describe. Well, how do I describe it? It's like we're talking shadow banning at this point. Some human beings, every time they're going to, and this is also human nature, every time they're going to score somebody, right? Like if I give you the option of scoring another human being, okay, there are some human beings that are always going to score low. Like they're just egotistical assholes or some shit like that, or they're always like, you know, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 1 out of 5. The highest they ever scored anybody is a 3 out of 5. And you can just like secretly shadow ban these toxic assholes from the equation, or you can just adjust their own fucking metrics for them so that a 3 out of 5 is a 5 out of 5, because apparently these people don't know how to use a 5 out of 5 system. And it's like the other player has to jump through the computer and suck their dick for them before they'd give them a 5 out of 5. Like, Jesus Christ, dude, give me a break. Learn how to use a 1 to 5 system. But yeah, you could shadow ban them if you really wanted to. But one fascinating player interaction that might come out of this whole social score system is that if I'm too much of a dick and I've lowered my social score too much for whatever reason, what this might end up doing is I might end up taking like all my badass gear that hopefully I have and just going into like low-level dungeons and just helping out lobies. So like it would be literally like, let's say I'm geared to the teeth, right? And people want to do like their mythic whatever. And they're struggling on mythic whatever. And rather than paying me gold to help them go do their mythic whatever, it could be like, yo, okay, I'll help you go do your mythic, but you guys all got to give me a 5 out of 5. You got to help me raise my social score. And they might ask questions like, you know, what happened? You give them some kind of story, but I think it's kind of fascinating that a social interaction might come out of it where it's more valuable for the better geared players to go back and help the lower geared players, just so they can raise their social score. By the way, I live in China, so saying social score keeps making me want to think about like social credit score, which is, and since I live in China, I must admit that this idea is nowhere near as amazing as the social credit score system. So, yeah, whoever came up with that system is a freaking genius, and it's amazing, and it should be put in everything, and you know how it is. Anyways, sarcasm, by the way, if you can't tell. I'm not sure how I feel about the Chinese social score system in perfect honesty. It's like, to be perfectly honest, in America we kind of have our own social credit system. I think that's the term they use over here. We have our own social credit system with like the whole Twitterati or whatever you call them, like, you know, shadow banning people and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fascinating. I think human beings are just naturally predisposed to manifestation of social credit systems. Anyways, preferably I'd like to keep it out of my governmental systems, but you know, it is what it is. And if the Chinese are down for it, then who am I to tell them they can't do it? All right, moving on. Oh, by the way, if you actually talk to Chinese people, like candidly, they actually like the idea of a social credit system. They're totally down with it. It's kind of interesting. What the hell was I talking about? I think I'm done talking about this, honestly. So yeah, so I was like, okay, if I was gonna fix the cancerous ass that is the looking for group meta, right, which is your item score is the only thing that matters. You're going to have shitty social interactions due to a combination of phasing and ease of replacement with no punishment for ease of replacement. If I wanted to step away from this, but I had to keep these systems in the game, and I'm looking at Classic World of Warcraft going, okay, in Classic it's much, much better. Why is it so much better? I would literally want to have additional systems in the game that bring back what makes the social interactions in Classic World of Warcraft so much fucking better than the social interactions in retail. And that would be that you're fucking punished for not making it work. right? You're punished, and in multiple ways, you may or may not be punished, or you should be punished for being a dickhead to people. Now, in classic World of Warcraft, you're typically punished by being a dickhead to people because they leave and you can't fucking replace them, or you get a bad server reputation for a variety of reasons. Some people like that. Some people like the elitist stuff. Like that's kind of why I want to. The social score system might work to your favor. Like you might have like super good item score, and you might have like a good class skill score. But Jesus Christ, your social score is dog shit. That might be exactly the elitist cockfag that you're looking for. Right? Like that might be the elitist asshole that you're looking for your guild, your team, or your high mythic plus. Like you don't give a fuck what their social score is. In fact, you prefer a lower social score than a higher social score, right? Because it's like you understand these psychotic maniacs who are so serious about their class and their items and so forth and so on. So you might want that. But yeah, so if I had to fix the current retail system, I would definitely immediately look into additional systems. If I had to fix it and I couldn't get rid of stuff, I would immediately look into additional game design systems that help replicate things I saw either in the past or in other games. So, yeah, I guess that's my my current thought on the situation. I personally think there might be other options here. Better refinements for this proposal. Clearly, like one of the big negatives about the proposal is that, oh my god, at the end of a dungeon or every time somebody leaves, I have to like actually click 2 buttons to like rank him on a 1 to 5 on both his social and his class skill level. Fuck, I can't be bothered by this. And it's like, yeah, I agreed. It kind of slows down your game somewhat, and having to wait also slows down your game somewhat. But how do I put this? It's like, and Kevin Jordan really brought it up. He's like, better game experience versus better social experience versus like better immersion experience. So if you think about it, for this is just me just blathering away from a game designer's perspective. So from a game designer's perspective, it's like, yes, I can make things easier for you as a player, but that may very well come at the expense of your social experience. Your social experience may suffer because I'm making things easier. I'm improving game design in certain aspects, right? I'm making it easier for you to get dungeons. I'm making it easier for you to replace people when they have to leave or when they're kicked people. I'm making a better game in that sense, but I'm making a worse social experience. These systems here that I'm proposing are doing the complete opposite. They're making the game worse from certain aspects and perspectives, but they're making the game better from a social experience perspective. So my take on the whole thing, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is I'm perfectly okay with it being easy to form groups. I'm perfectly okay with it being easy to even teleport to a dungeon, right? Like, boom, we form a group, no problem. Boom, we're at the dungeon, no problem. I'm down with that. What I'm not down with is the moment it comes to having some real social interactions with other people in your MMO, you suddenly need to have punishments and rewards. Like you're literally punishing bad behavior, and your system needs to punish bad behavior, and your system needs to reward good behavior. And the number one way to punish people in classic World of Warcraft in World of Warcraft in general, is to make life difficult for them, right? Especially if it's so much easier to be nice to people and get your way than it is to be a dick to people and get your way, then guess what's going to happen? Human beings will naturally flow in that direction. So anyways, I probably blathered on enough with this supplemental. Jesus, almost 40 minutes. Yeah, but I just didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I was like, I brought it up as an example, and let me think if I can identify a solution as a game designer myself. So anyways, Deus Volt Boys, and I'm going to try to get a Pallycast going with Talrain. Hopefully we can shame Drakova into coming back. Be kind of funny. Anyways, Deus Volt Boys, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Bye.